What is it they say? If you live long enough, you either die a hero or you live long enough to become the villain. If you live long enough and you follow college football in the state of Alabama, you get to see both sides of the Iron Bowl rivalry become heroes and villains at different times. And we're going to talk about that today here on ScarboKnows. I'm Kevin Skarbinski. Thanks for joining us today. Let's give a shout out, first of all, to our terrific sponsor, Money Management Services. They will take great care of you if you are anywhere in the Southeast. They're based here in Birmingham, the Rice family. They are a family-owned, fee-only financial services company, which sets them apart. Check out the QR code. Visit with the Rice family. They will take great care of you. I don't know who's taking care of the Alabama football program these days. Kalen DeBoer is the man in charge. He's off to quite possibly the worst start you could imagine in his second year taking over for Nick Saban. But as we know, those of us who are Sabanologists and Iron Bowlologists and have been around a while, following this rivalry, we know that for every reaction, there's an equal and opposite reaction. And if it weren't bad enough for Alabama that they got run by 2 touchdowns at Florida State by a former Auburn head coach, Gus Malzahn, as the new FSU offensive coordinator, doing the damage with 230 rushing yards, their rival the night before went out and delivered Hugh Freeze his most impressive victory in the first game of his third year with the Tigers. And it is instructive to look at where these two programs are. Are we witnessing the beginning of a tectonic shift in this rivalry? Now, I know. One game is one game. We all know that. And this thing can flip in a heartbeat. Let Auburn go out in a couple of weeks. We're going to give them victories over Ball State and South Alabama the next 2 weeks. But if Auburn goes out and loses at Norman, Oklahoma in a few weeks and then follows that with a loss at Texas A&M, this is a completely different conversation. Auburn has not gotten to the point where they have earned the benefit of the doubt. They're off to a great start. And you cannot write off Alabama completely at this point. Some people have. Some people want to fire the head coach, the defensive coordinator, the athletics director. That's nonsense. Some people are parsing the buyout for Kalen DeBoer far too soon for that conversation. Tap your brakes. Now, if they go out and we're going to give them the win Saturday over Louisiana Monroe, forgive me, Bryant Vincent, the head coach of ULM, excellent coach, excellent man, known him a long time. They have very little chance to beat Alabama, and they'll play an angry Alabama, which makes it worse. And then we're also going to give Alabama the Wisconsin victory the following week. We saw what Alabama did in Madison, Wisconsin to the Badgers last year. Then it gets real for Alabama again when they go to Georgia. Georgia hasn't lost at home since, I think, 2019. Although Kalen DeBoer has not lost to Kirby Smart yet. We'll see. So at the moment, we have to kind of project, we have to speculate, but we also have to look back because history teaches us some things if we're smart enough to learn from it. But let's look at where things are now. And I would encourage you to read my column in today's Birmingham News. You can find it on al.com. There's the headline. Breaking: Alabama's aura and the opportunity of a lifetime for Hugh Freeze and Auburn. If you're Auburn and you look across the state and you see a wounded Alabama, you had better take advantage of it because it doesn't happen all the time. It hasn't happened for a decade and a half. But it has happened in the past, and Auburn has been ready for its close-up when Alabama has struggled in the wilderness, when it's wandered through coach after coach. And we're going to get into some details about that. But again, check out the column. I encourage you. You can find it on al.com. You can find it on my Twitter account. You'll find a link there. My Twitter is at Kevin Skarbinski. Very easy to remember. So let's look at the opinions of some others, first of all. And the best place to look is the AP poll after week 1 of the college football season. Let's look at that poll. Let's see what the 66 voters across the country thought in general, but in particular with our Iron Bowl rivals. Alabama at 21. Auburn still in the others receiving votes category, although they've jumped up in that group. Now, I wrote a column on Monday in the Birmingham News, al.com. You can also find that. I encourage you to read it. And the headline said, "Do it, you cowards. Rank Auburn ahead of Alabama." They didn't, for reasons of their own. And let me just say this. It's easy to take shots at the AP poll voters. And every one of their ballots is public. You can see who voted whom where. It's an impossible task, especially this early in the season with such a small sample size. I voted in the AP poll once in my career. This was by choice. Way back in 1988, in a year that it was relatively easy to do so, Notre Dame went undefeated, won the national championship. There wasn't a lot of controversy, not a lot of dispute back in 88. But I decided at that time that, you know what? And early in my career, I was the Auburn beat writer for the Birmingham News, and I decided that I should not be helping to decide who wins a national championship. To me, that was a conflict of interest. That is not the case today because we have a college football playoff. We have a college football playoff selection committee that makes those decisions. So there's less pressure, I think, on you as an AP poll voter. There's no conflict of interest. You're not deciding who gets into the playoff. You're not deciding who gets an opportunity to play for a national championship. But it's still a very difficult task. Ralph Russo, the longtime AP college football writer who used to compile the poll, he didn't vote in it. People thought he did. And now he works for The Athletic, and now he's actually voting in the poll. And it's interesting to read his pieces on how difficult it is to actually sit down on a Sunday or a Saturday night and try to rank these teams, especially early in the season. So we can't tell a lot from it right now, but there are some trends developing regarding our Iron Bowl rivals. Let's look at some trends that we picked up after week 1. And obviously the arrow is pointing up for Auburn and down for Alabama. Auburn, which was, if you extrapolate out in others receiving votes, they were 37 in the preseason poll. Now they're up to 27. They appeared on 20 ballots this week. They got 94 points this week. They only got 10 points. And remember, the number of points you get goes in reverse order. If you get a 25th place vote on a ballot, you get 1 point. You get a number 1 place. If someone puts you number 1 on their ballot, you get 25 points, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Auburn had only 10 points in the preseason poll. They're up to 94 points. They appeared on 20 ballots this week. One voter ranked them as high as number 11. That was their highest placement. And this is instructive. 10 voters had Auburn ranked higher than Alabama. Not enough to flip them, but that's something to keep an eye on. Now, Alabama, of course, didn't crash and burn totally. They didn't end their streak of being ranked in the AP poll, which is, let me see, I've got that written down somewhere. They have a ridiculous streak of 208. I think it's up to 280 weeks of being ranked somewhere in the AP poll. And that is second all time behind only Nebraska. So they didn't lose that lengthy streak, but they did fall from 8 to 21. That's the farthest Alabama football has ever dropped in a single AP poll, 13 spots. They did not appear on 14 ballots. 14 voters did not think Alabama deserved to be in the top 25. They also were ranked as high as number 11, but now that's even. The highest vote Auburn got was equal to the highest votes Alabama got. That tells you something in terms of perception. And this was the lowest ranking for Alabama since the 2008 preseason poll when they came in at number 24. That was, as you recall, the second season under Nick Saban. And then they played Clemson in the Kickoff Classic in Atlanta, and everything began to change. The dynasty began to arise. Contrast that with game 1, year 2 for Kalen DeBoer. The dynasty was already dead. We've talked about this before. Even while Nick Saban was there, they were no longer the dynasty they used to be. But they also were not losing to unranked teams by 2 touchdowns, as they did against Florida State. And my favorite fun fact of this week's poll, Reese Davis, Alabama native, Alabama alum. On his ballot, he had Auburn ranked at number 25. He did not include Alabama on his ballot. I don't know. Does that get you kicked out of the Red Elephant Club? I'm not sure. Or the Alumni Association. I'm sure he may hear some blowback on that. However, based on the blowback that I've heard, not towards me, but towards Kalen DeBoer and Kane Womack and Ryan Williams and A.J. McCarron is just torching Ryan Williams every chance he gets. Now, I know former players take great pride in their programs, as they should. AJ was there for 3 national championships. He was the starting quarterback for 2 of them. So he should take great pride in what he helped build in Tuscaloosa. But is it productive to just eviscerate one of the current players? Ryan Williams did not have a good game. He's not been the same player he was at the first half of last year, particularly the Georgia game when he just wowed everyone. But I'm not sure that's going to help. I'm not sure that's what current players want to hear from former players. That kind of personal attack. And that's how I would describe it. I'm not sure that's helpful. But what this all leads to is the opportunity that Hugh Freeze and Auburn have right now. Alabama is not Alabama as we have come to know it. It's not the "we want Bama" of the last decade and a half. So what is Auburn going to do about it? Can Auburn take advantage of a wounded elephant? Well, funny you should ask. Funny I should ask. They've had this opportunity before, and it's worked out pretty well. Let's look at what happened over a significant period of time when Alabama didn't have one of the greatest coaches of all time on its sideline. And to summarize, hey, no GOAT, no problem on the plains. From 1983 to 2006, that's a 24-year period. That is a significant sample size. That's between the time that Bear Bryant retired and sadly, shortly thereafter, passed away, and the time Nick Saban arrived at the Tuscaloosa airport to a Beatles-like welcome. Look at the numbers. The numbers don't lie. Again, this is over 24 seasons. Who had the better overall record? Auburn. 205 wins to 195 for Alabama. Higher winning percentage. Look at the SEC record. 116 wins to 110 for Alabama. Higher winning percentage. Who won more Iron Bowls in those 24 years? Auburn won 14 of them. Alabama won 10. Who had more winning seasons in those 24 years? Oops, it's Auburn again. with 20-18 for Alabama. Undefeated seasons, Auburn had 2 of them in that stretch. One under Terry Bowden in 1993, his first season on the Plains. And then Tommy Tuberville, of course, in 2004. Meanwhile, in that same period of time, Alabama had 1 undefeated season under Gene Stallings in 1992 with one of the greatest defenses anyone has ever seen. How many SEC titles did the 2 programs win in those 24 years? Advantage Auburn, 5-3. How many national championships did the 2 programs win in that period of time? Now, we're going to use Auburn accounting here, recent Auburn accounting. So we're going to count 1983 under Pat Dye, 1993 under Terry Bowden, and 2004 under Tommy Tuberville. Compare that to 1 big ring for the Crimson Tide under Gene Stallings, again, that undefeated 92 team. And if you want to summarize why these numbers look the way they look, focus on that last category. How many head coaches each of those programs had between 1983 and 2006? Alabama had 6. 6 head coaches in 24 years. Ray Perkins, Bill Curry, Gene Stallings, Mike Dubose, Dennis Franchione, and Mike Shula. And I'm not even counting Mike Price because he never coached an actual game as the head man in Tuscaloosa. He never got to game 1. So 6 different head coaches in 24 years. Meanwhile, Auburn had 3. Pat Dye, their best coach of the modern era. Obviously, his name is on the field, as it should be. And they're going to be honoring him and celebrating him Saturday at the Ball State game, as they should. And then, of course, he was followed by Terry Bowden, who started off like a rocket and then had a good run overall, but just crashed and burned at the end. And then Tuberville, of course, followed him. Had a solid 10 years on the Plains. So while Alabama was hiring and firing coaches left and right, Auburn had relative stability. I say all that to go back to the point, tap your brakes on the fire Kalen DeBoer now crusade. It would be folly to do so right now. Now, come the end of the season, if they're 7-5, 8-4, 6-6, then it's a different conversation. If their Iron Bowl streak ends at 5, if Hugh Freeze can break through there and Auburn can win that game for the first time since 2019, then we're having a different conversation. If Auburn finishes with a better record than Alabama, which hasn't happened since 2013, then we're having a different conversation. If Alabama doesn't make the playoff for a second straight year, all the factors that will be considered to evaluate Kalen DeBoer at the end of year 2 in Tuscaloosa. And that's when he's evaluated every day. He's evaluated by you. He's evaluated by me. He's evaluated by Greg Byrne. He's evaluated by anonymous boosters who like to talk to reporters and express their displeasure. And, of course, I'm referring to the On3 article by Chris Lowe and Andy Staples, in which one of those boosters did just that, expressed his displeasure with the current state of the football program. When that kind of thing starts coming out, when those kind of anonymous comments start popping up on reputable media sites, you need to be a little concerned if you're the current Alabama head coach. Not saying it's over, because that's way premature. But again, we're talking about trends. We're looking for trends. We're looking for clues and breadcrumbs. Where is this going? Where could this go? We know where it is right now. It's not in a good place. And nothing that Alabama does Saturday, and this holds for Auburn as well, nothing that happens at either place, either in Jordan Hare or Bryant Denny on Saturday, is going to change anyone's minds about either head coach or either program or the direction of either program, unless lightning strikes, unless Auburn falls on its face against Ball State, unless Louisiana Monroe does the unthinkable, which it did back in 2007 during Nick Saban's first year, and pulls off another upset of the century. Unless something really weird and wild happens in either place, no one's going to change their opinion. And the same is true the following week. So we're really looking toward later in September. And Auburn going to Texas A&M after going to Oklahoma, while Alabama goes to Georgia. That'll tell us a lot more about where these programs are. Are they two ships passing in the night? Is this Auburn's moment in time to flip the script, to upend the rivalry, to take the upper hand? It better be. That's why they hired Hugh Freeze. I know part of the reason was he beat Nick Saban twice while he was at Ole Miss. But we knew Nick Saban wasn't going to coach forever. And it was likely if Hugh Freeze did what he was hired to do, if he did his job, which he didn't do very well on the field or in preparation the first 2 years, let's be honest. But if he did the job he was hired to do, he was likely going to be at Auburn to go against the guy who followed the guy at Alabama. And that's where we are. And one game in to Freeze's third year and DeBoer's second year, it's advantage Auburn. And yes, Auburn should have been ranked ahead of Alabama this week. Reese Davis had it right. Most of the voters had it wrong. The voters who put Auburn ahead of Alabama had it right. Because if you're voting on teams this year, you should vote on their performances this year. Not on their reputations, not on their brands, not on their NIL valuations, not on their budgets, not on their all-time record, not on the number of trophies in their trophy case. Base it on what they've done this season. And what we've seen from Auburn and what we've not seen from Alabama tells us that right now, Auburn looks like a better football team than Alabama. That can change. It may change. A lot of people think it will change. I'm going to ride the fence on this one. I'm not so sure. Again, I've told you this throughout the offseason. I've got to see it to believe it, that Hugh Freeze is the answer at Auburn. They're moving in the right direction. It looks like they made a smart decision in the transfer portal when they brought in Jackson Arnold. But Jackson Arnold's not going to run for 137 yards every week. He's not going to run for 137 yards against every SEC opponent on the schedule. And I know he ran for 130 or so against Alabama last year. Another strike against Kane Womack and that Alabama coaching staff. But at some point, he's going to have to throw the ball. Can he do it accurately? Can he do it efficiently? Can he do it sufficiently to balance Auburn's running game, which looked really, really good against Baylor? But this is a fascinating conversation that no one saw coming back in June or July at media days during fall camp. No one in Tuscaloosa, no one in Auburn, nobody saw this flipping like this quickly. Again, one game. One game can be an imposter. It can lead you to foolish conclusions, can lead you to foolish decisions if you're administrators. We need more receipts. But the receipts we have now tell us things are looking up at Auburn and they're looking down at Alabama. And we don't have to go back far. I know 17 years seems like a long time, and maybe it is, but we don't have to go back. It's not ancient history to find a time when Alabama was not coached by a GOAT. And Auburn took advantage of that. And Alabama looked awfully ordinary. They lost their aura. For a 24-year period, there were very good times within that stretch. They did win a national championship. Gene Stallings did a fantastic job. But they were not Bama the way they have come to be known based on the accomplishments of that program under Nick Saban. So this season has already started with a bang. There'll be a bit of a whimper, I think, the next couple of weeks until we get into SEC play for both programs, but I can't wait. It should be fun. Just keep in mind this little bit of history as things move forward. All right, that's all I got to say about that. I'm Kevin Skarbinski. This is ScarboKnows. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to executive producer Brendan Martin, who steers the Sidelines.live ship through the waters. Thank you to Money Management Services, our sponsor. Check them out. You'll be glad you did. See you.
Since 1992, Money Management Services in Birmingham has provided individuals and business owners with trusted, fee-only financial advice. We're more than advisors, we're your financial family. From retirement planning to tax strategies and estate planning, our team builds personalized wealth management plans tailored to your life. At Money Management Services, we treat you like family, because when you walk through our doors, you become part of ours.